So the Mandalorian is back, and as always we're bringing you a big breakdown from a galaxy far, far away. In this video we're going to be going over Season 3 Episode 2 and recapping all the Easter eggs, plot details, and all the things you missed. I just want to get straight into it, but please hit the thumbs up button if you enjoy the video, and don't forget to subscribe for breakdowns like this every day. We've also just launched a Clips channel which is full of heavy spoilers highlights, so make sure you head over there right after this. Anyway, enough of me pushing my shit. What you want to hear us go over is Episode 2, and we begin on Tatooine during the Boonta Eve celebrations. We start off seeing fireworks being shot into the air, and celebrations like this of course happened at the end of Return of the Jedi. I'm pretty sure that fireworks were outlawed under the Imperial rule, but the Hutts did control this sector until Boba took over. Now in the opening we catch two V-35 land speeders racing through the streets, and you might recognise this vehicle as something that popped up during A New Hope. The Boonta Eve pod race is something that we also witnessed during The Phantom Menace, with it being an annual event that took place during the celebrations. Boonta Eve came about when Boonta Holistic Shadowru ascended to godhood, definitely pronounced that right, and the Hutt was the first to do so since then the anniversary of it's been marked by this occasion. Also, I love how we can catch this guy doing donuts in the opening. Nice. Anyway, we are of course visiting Tatooine since Boba Fett took over. I think it very much mirrors Navarro and how that became a more upper class area. Now we find ourselves returning to Peli Motto. Anyway, she's running a scam with some Jawas, and as we learned when we saw her last, she has a furry fetish. The Rodian that she's talking to is now also wearing upper class clothes, resembling Greef Karga's globe since he became the magistrate.
High Magistrate?
Sorry, High Magistrate. Now, I think this is just put in place to once more hammer home how the economy is thriving, but Peli's used this opportunity to make even more money. In the hangar we can catch a BD droid once more, along with some pit droids who also debuted in The Phantom Menace. We can also catch a periscope droid, and R5 who becomes a big character in the entry. It turns out that Jawas have taken this customer's engine, and they're basically stealing people's stuff and then selling it back to them. Jawas are other creatures that I think might pop up from time to time, and we know from last week that they were the ones who gave Mando a piece of Mandalore. He comes in riding on a ship, purring like a nuzzled shrew, and we see his Grogu does a Jedi flip out the cockpit. This is something that he of course learned from Luke, who was training him in the ways of the Force. Reminded me a lot of when Yoda did it during Attack of the Clones, and it's sort of like poetry they rhyme. Now Peli brings up Boba, and then the Hutts with her asking if they're back. I totally forgot that they'd left the planet in Book of Boba Fett, and I'll never forgive them for saying that the Pikes scared them enough to leave. They ran the planet for centuries. Like, what the f***? Anyway, I suppose there was a power vacuum after Jabba died, but either way, the planet now belongs to Boba. Anyway, IG-11 needs a memory circuit, but with Jawas being unable to provide one, he ends up going to Mandalore with R5 instead. This is to do some...
It's rated for spelunking.
Spelunking? Where do you spelunking?
Which I thought might be a reference to Batman Begins.
What's your interest in it, Mr. Wayne?
I want to borrow it for spelunking.
Spelunking.
R5 is still completely bust up, and in case you missed our last video, then this next bit's for you. So R5 was the same droid that Uncle Owen originally tried to purchase all the way back in A New Hope, and as he was going forward, his motivator bust up. On the back of him, we can still see the oil leaking out, and it's clear that he's had better days. Now there actually was a non-canon comic that stated he was a Jedi, and it said that he actually self-sabotaged so that R2 could go with Luke. Here though, we see the droid is scared to leave the hangar, even though Peli insists that he once fought with the rebellion. Personally, I think that's all a lie, and you could say that when it comes to getting Mando excited to take him, that he's a bad motivator.
Ha!
Anyway, because it's Boonta Eve, Peli will give it to Mando for half price and throw in a free oil bath. We've seen these before in the saga, and C-3PO took one after Luke bought him an R2. Now we cut to the night time to see the celebration still going, and it's such a cool way to start the episode. Titled The Mines of Mandalore, this sees Mando and Grogu next heading to, well you guessed it. They arrive at Mandalore, and Din Djarin brings up how the planet used to be luscious and green. This is the case too, and like Tatooine, it was filled with tropical rainforests, luscious oceans, and lots of rivers. The Mandalorians also used to be sworn enemies against the Jedi, but then a Mandalorian Jedi named Tar Vizsla rose up and united them. Wielding the Darksaber, he brought the people together, and this is why it's become such a precious item. Out in space, Mando also points out his home planet, which is called Concordia. At the end of the Mandalore War, this was turned into a mining base by insurgents, which wiped out most of the moon's forests. Eventually, these were abandoned though, and the moon once more started to thrive until the next civil war. The winning side exiled the losers to the moon, which is where they've remained ever since. It's a bit like Australia, when Brits used to send prisoners there, but over time they became far more civilized than our Aussie cousins. Yeah, having that. Anyway, Concordia built up its own governor and became a prosperous place until civil war fractured the alliances. This idea of the Mandalorians constantly being at war with each other is something that Bo-Katan touched upon last week, but I can very much see her and Mando bringing everyone together. They both represent opposite sides of the divide, but if they can work together, then everyone can. Now that Mando has been quote-unquote redeemed in the living waters, I'm thinking he could return and bring them all together. Mando also points out where Bo is, and he gives a lesson to Grogu.
And that's Kalevala, where we visited Bo-Katan.
This foreshadows him having to reach out to her later on, which we'll talk more about in just a bit. Mando also has to travel through a storm to get to the surface, and we learn that the magnetic field around the planet has been disrupted by fusion bombs. First mentioned in the 1977 Star Wars comic issue 53, it's possible that these weapons were also used during the Battle of Mindor. They've completely f***ed up the planet, and we can also catch giant green gem-like structures now popping out of the surface. This is made of the same material that the Jawas gave to Din Djarin, and it's clear that they visited it, highlighting how the air is safe to breathe. Now as they land, we see several rocky formations, and shoutouts to our editor Matt for pointing out that these look similar to Palpatine's throne on Exegol. The destruction of Mandalore is also reminiscent of the glassing in Halo, and it's transformed the planet to have this almost mirror-like surface. But something lurks in the caves and crevices, and after R5 stops responding, Mando goes in to investigate. As he jumps down, we can also catch the Sundari, which we get a better look at later in the episode. This was the capital of Mandalore, and it was destroyed during the Night of 1,000 Tears. This was playing upon the Night of Broken Glass, which happened during the Second World War in the ghettos, with the Nazis enacting their plan against the Jews. The event completely destroyed the Sundari and most of the planet, leading to the wreck that we see it as here. Now as Mando goes deeper underground, he comes across several creatures, and these reminded me a lot of the salt vampires from Star Trek. I also got a lot of vibes of the Morlocks from the Time Machine, and all in all they just add more horror elements to this entry. Now similar to the Morlocks, these humanoid creatures lived underground and attacked from dark caves. Known as Alamites, they don't stand well against the Darksaber, but it's clear that Mando still has a lot of difficulty wielding it. Bo on the other hand doesn't, because she's used the weapon before and has found the inner peace that's needed to do so. Mando still feels at odds with himself due to not having bathed in the living waters yet, and it's possible that next week he may be able to wield the blade finally. He and Grogu dive off the edge and into the lower parts of the city, and this reminded me a lot of the descent that happens in Waterworld. We're very much travelling into a lost and forgotten land that was once a thriving metropolis. You compare this to how it looked in the Clone Wars, and the city is a shadow of its former self, now shrouded in darkness. It very much juxtaposes Navarro and Tatooine, and whereas they've thrived, this place has gone to shit. All that's left are creatures lurking in the shadows, and we come across several as they drop in. I really love the horror aesthetic that this takes on, and it very much becomes similar to Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. This involved travelling into the belly of the beast in order to go about a major transformation, and this could end up cementing the change that Mando has with the Darksaber next week. Down there we can see several lizard-like creatures lurking in the shadows, and they carry green eyes similar to the Alamites. It's possible that the fusion bombing actually turned their eyes like this, but that might be a reach, cause we do talk a lot of nonsense to be fair. Anyway, as he goes further in, he finds a Mandalorian helmet, and when the first trailer dropped, many believed that this was Tar Vizsla's. He was the Mandalorian Jedi who crafted the Darksaber and brought the people together. However, sadly that isn't the case. It's just used as bait so that Mando can get grabbed, and this happens with a modified crab droid. These machines were used by the Confederacy of Independent Systems during the Clone Wars, and they were mainly used on soft terrain like sand and dirt. It carries Mando off, and we get a similar shot to what happens in Gladiator when Maximus is being escorted away. The droid carries a cage on its stomach, and inside lies a biomechanical droid that's modified itself similar to General Grievous. I'd say droid, it might be a creature, but very strange looking and very scary as well. I do like the design of it though, and it has flashes of Massifs, Frenzy from Transformers, and lots of little things pulling together for this creepy aesthetic. There are yellow pipes on its body, and these reminded me a lot of the ones that we see in Palp's base at the start of Rise of Skywalker. To me, they looked a lot like snakeskin, and I definitely felt that there were flashes of the Xenomorph too. The Cyclops eye in it also appears like it's just the left one, which throws you off balance a bit and adds another dimension to the creature. Now Grogu sneaks over to Mando, but he's unable to free him, and he force flips out of there before returning to the surface. Like Ellie, he's now on his own, without his dad, and we see one of the crocodile creatures lurch out at him, revealing its wings. I think that this might be a slight redesign of the Petrosaur from the Star Wars universe. They're also native to Mandalore and pulled from dinosaurs like what this crocodile creature here looks like. Now one of the Alamites goes to grab Grogu on the surface before he force pushes it like it's the like button, and the bat swoops in and attacks. As Pelly mentioned earlier, R5 has the ability to pilot the ship, and thus Grogu has to just point the way. This is the way, he says, and it takes us to Bo-Katan, and I legitimately thought that she was just going to go out there and start shooting at him. Was all like,
let's get rid of him once and for all.
But now upon seeing Grogu is on his own, she's shaken out of her apathy. Bo says that she wants to be left alone, but knowing how lonely this can be, she heads out to Mandalore with him. At this point we see her ship the Gauntlet, which I think's one of the coolest crafts in Star Wars. The Comrock fighter has a Class 1 hyperdrive and 4 laser cannons with the capabilities of both forwards and backwards fire. It cuts through the skyline, and I loved watching the view as it passes over the destroyed Sundari. This is very symbolic of how Bo feels at the moment, and she's a shell of her former self, just like that is. She longingly stares at it, and I love how you can see little details on the wings, such as them vibrating as they move through the air. When designing the concepts for the universe, Ralph McQuarrie wanted to give everything this lived-in feeling, which I think is definitely hammered home in moments like this. Watching the ship land just gives it this feeling of weight to everything, and it's such a cool moment. Now as Bo and Grogu head in, we watch R5 plugging into the ship. This is a data port, and it's a similar thing to what we've seen characters like R2 and Echo access. As they go closer in, I also got vibes of the original Krypton design in the Superman movies, and this crystalline surface carries both a feeling of beauty and horror within it. Inside, Bo reminisces of her past and talks about how her family used to rule it all. This is correct too, as her sister was Satine, the Duchess of the planet. Due to all the civil wars that had wrecked Mandalore, she wanted to bring peace to the planet, and she was a pacifist. Many of the Mandalorians rejected this ideology though, and eventually she and the planet were pulled into the Clone Wars. Obi-Wan was besotted by her, and at one point he even admitted that he would have left the Jedi Order if she'd asked him to. Bo says that she's fought alongside the Jedi, and this is something that we also saw throughout the show. She and Ahsoka became allies after they started off on the wrong foot, and I'd love to see the pair reunited in the series. Down here she then encounters the Alamites, and she bursts out her double pistols, wire, and also her shield. Known as a personal combat shield, they're activated from the Mandalorian van braces, and are capable of blocking blaster bolts and also lightsabers. She says that the Alamites used to live in the wastelands, and that if they survived, then other things may have too. This very much foreshadows the reveal at the end, which we'll also talk about in just a bit. Now as she heads further in, we find the creature in its lair. We don't actually find out what it's up to, but it seems to be draining blood from him, and this could be being used to keep the tissue alive inside it. It is part machine, and yeah, that's just the theory I had when watching this play out. Well, it's clearly been draining several Mandalorians due to the helmets, and it might work as a sort of vampire parasite. Bo then launches her attack, and though she can't use the Force, she pulls the Darksaber to her hand. She then stabs the creature, and I got a lot of vibes of John Carpenter's Thing when the head came off and started to crawl away. No matter what part of that you killed, it was always able to keep going if another part survived, and it ends up jumping into the crab droid. This kind of plays out like a quick time event, and by a small fire, Bo makes Mando some porg soup. I think this might mean porgs, and my bad Luke. Now, she says Grogu is a good navigator, and it's possible that all Jedi carry this innate ability due to them being one with the Force. Luke managed to find Dagobah and navigate his way to Yoda instinctively, and Grogu may have done the same thing. I love how Grogu reaches out for the pork soup, desperate for some, and after it's drank, they end up going to the mines. Bo very much sees everything like this as a pointless myth, but come the end, I think she will start to believe. She encounters a literal mythosaur, and yeah, bit on the nose, but the myths she saw might be coming true. Now they head out to the mines themselves, and these echo the mines of Moria from Lord of the Rings. She states that the Civil Wars made the Mandalorians weak, and we know from the Clone Wars that she also started to dislike the pacifists. Both of these sides very much led to the downfall of Mandalore, and I think that the Union is the only way forward. Bo then also brings up her father Adonai, who was first mentioned in the Build the Millennium Falcon book. He was a very obscure reference that, but he was killed during the Great Clan Wars, which is when he was then succeeded by Satine. Bo and her story actually remind me a lot of the myth of Anastasia, who apparently managed to escape the execution of the Russian Tsar. It was thought for some time that she got away, and I don't know if I'm reaching or not with that, but I saw a lot of similarities in their story. Finally, they reach the Chambers of the Living Water, and Bo brings up how it ties in with the history of Mandalore. Mandalore the Great apparently tamed the first mythosaur here, and the beast then became their signet. These stories are documented in ancient songs you can find on the Star Wars wiki, and they're all kinda tying it together so that it's all connected. Now, in another Lord of the Rings reference, we watch as Mando is pulled under the water, similar how Frodo was by the Watcher. This is the second time Bo has had to save him from some water, and she dives in after him, which is when she comes eye to eye with the mythosaur. It's such a cool way to end the episode with it appearing almost like a kaiju. I love how there's this repeated theme of eyes throughout the episode. Up until now, they were thought to be extinct, but that was a f***ing lie. Similar to the curse, the rumours of their deaths have been greatly exaggerated, and it leads to a number of possible routes that they could take things in the future. Now personally, I think that the mythosaurs likely lay dormant on the planet, and thus the Mandalorians started to believe that they'd been wiped out. They had been hunted to an extreme, and it makes sense that they'd then retreat. However, the bombings could have awakened them, and upon returning, they might have seen that the Mandalorians had either been killed or ousted. I very much view the scene as an awakening, and it could highlight what will be happening with the Mandalorian next. The Book of Boba Fett featured the titular character taming a Rancor, and he ended up riding this into battle. I think a similar thing could happen in the series with Mando taming one, which is set up by the line in which Bo discusses Mandalore the Great. If he masters that in the Darksaber, then he would be a fearsome symbol riding into battle that would echo some of the great Mandalorian legends. Him sitting on top of a mythosaur wielding the blade would be such a cool sight, and I definitely hope that's the way things go in the future. Now, as for my thoughts on the episode, I like this better than last week, and even though I thought that was good as well, I think this one just had more style and substance. You know, I love my horrors, and seeing this seep into the show was such a cool direction to take things. The creature design at points was so good, and it added an extra dimension to everything. Always good watching Bo-Katan busting people up too, and though I initially thought that they'd be enemies, I think having them working together is much better. Really strong episode, and this is pretty much the episode 2 that I think Season 2 should have had. Both were monster stories, but this one had substance to it as well, with us learning about the lore instead of there just being that big spider thing. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Really enjoyed it, and you know what? People keep saying I'm a shill, yeah? But if you go back to my episode 2 season 2 breakdown, yeah? You'll see I said I didn't think that was very good. This was the right way to do it. Didn't feel like filler, and all in all, I really enjoyed the episode. Now, obviously, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so comment below and let me know. And just to let you know, we're running a competition right now and giving away the Rocky 4K box set to 3 subscribers on the 15th of March. All you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the episode. We pick the comments at random on the 15th, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of The Last of Us, which will be linked on screen right now. Lots of things to talk about, lots of things to go over there, so definitely head over there right after this. By the way, thanks for sticking through the video. I've been Paul, I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.